Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to our best chess games of all time series. So in this series we're following the best of the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history, and today I wanted to show a really brilliant game that was played in 2016 between the two top grandmasters from the USA, between Fabiano Caruana and Hikaru Nakamura. So this game is really incredible because in one particular moment again we'll have a beautiful queen sacrifice, and this game was suggested to me by one of my viewers in the comment section below, and of course I will cover many of your suggested games. I'm sorry I cannot cover of course everything that you are suggesting to me, because I simply don't have time to cover every beautiful game that has been played in chess history. But I think this game is really special because first of all, the queen sacrifice that we'll see here is actually part of the opening theory of the Najdorf Sicilian. Many games have been played in a similar way, but of course then something else happened. Also white won some games, also black won some games in particular cases. So as I said, this queen sacrifice is something that you have to know if you are studying maybe the Najdorf Sicilian from black's perspective, or if you want to beat the Najdorf Sicilian. So it's really part of the main theory of the Najdorf. So let's check out now this tactical beautiful game, and also what is the importance of the queen sacrifice in one particular moment. So here Fabi pulled off the move e4. We have c5 by Hikaru, knight to f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight to d4, and after knight to f6, knight to c3, and a6, we have now reached the Najdorf Sicilian. And okay, many things can be played here. You can go into some English attacks with e3, f3, bishop to e3, queen to d2, g4 and h4 and similar stuff. Here Fabi plays this positional idea, bishop to g5, because if black plays different moves, if black doesn't play the move e6 like Hikaru played here, then I think many times you'll witness this idea, just bishop takes f6 and messing up the pawn structure after g takes f6 or e takes f6. Then white will simply occupy the d5 square and will have, I think, a comfortable positional game. So after move bishop to g5, e6 was played by Hikaru. We have now f4 by Fabiano Caruana. We have h6, and now bishop to h4. You could maybe try bishop to f6 immediately, but now after queen to f6, black is continuing the game, of course, with the bishop pair. I think this is something that white should not do. So that's why bishop to h4, and now here Hikaru plays queen to b6, attack simply the b2 weakness. If you try now maybe bishop takes f6 to mess up the pawn structure, then black will probably take with the g pawn. Still, of course, this is a messed up pawn structure, but I simply like now the queen's activity here on this diagonal. And this bishop, although it's temporarily maybe a bad piece, it is blocked out by its own pawns, by the pawn on d6, but also by the pawn on h6. I think still this bishop can be improved with d5 and similar stuff, bishop to c5. There are many beautiful ways to open the position for the bishop pair, so it would be, I think, a risky choice to give up the bishop pair in an early stage of the game like this, with many dark square weaknesses, with the f2 weakness, with the e3 weakness. So as I said, maybe this could be playable, but I still think that you have to know what is going on. Then afterwards you should maybe study this opening line by heart. So what black should not do is after bishop to f6 is to take the pawn on b2. Then I think it's immediately losing here for black, because then knight to b5 can happen. So white is sacrificing the piece back, but now after a takes b5, bishop to d4, here white simply retreats and threatens now the move knight to b5, which is now a disaster here for black. So this is not going to happen, so that's why from move queen to b6, here Fabi didn't take the pawn on f6, but I wanted to show you the importance also about this move. So now Fabi plays the calm move a3. Obviously you cannot take now the pawn on b2, because your queen got trapped, of course, with the knight to a4, and the queen doesn't have moves. You have to sacrifice the queen maybe for the knight or maybe for the rook, but I think it's game over here. So that's why here bishop to e7 was the continuation by Hikaru, and now Fabiano plays bishop to f2, lines up here the bishop against the queen, threatening of course some discovered attacks maybe with knight to e6 or similar stuff. So that's why queen to c7, queen to f3, knight to d7, and now queenside castling. So this is now really fast development here by Fabiano Caruana. He played now really in a fast way. He's now moved 12, and he has castled already. He has brought out many minor pieces. The only thing that he needs to do is of course play somewhere with the bishop, and then when that happens, he has fully development. He has also then the rook connection, which is perfectly fine. You have to play of course fast development in an opening series. So here after move queenside castling, Hikaru is saying, okay, you have showed your cards, you have castled queenside, now I want to attack you immediately. There are maybe this line knight to b5, knight to b5, then followed maybe with knight to d6. This could be risky, maybe it's something worth to study, but in this particular scenario, in my opinion, it would simply be too risky, because your king is also here. So if something gets cleared, then of course the b file could get open. So this tactical shot in some occasions it's not working. I think here it's simply not. So here after move b5 we have g4. So here Fabiano is saying, okay, you're attacking the queen side like in any opposite side attack games. So you should also attack the counter side. We should attack simply now the king side. So here g5. Now very important move by Fabiano Caruana, h4, because if you play f takes g5, this is not good, because the knight will come on e5 with a tempo. Queen to g2 has to be played, and now knight to g4 is I think a beautiful continuation here for black. The bishop on f2 is hanging. You can maybe take the pawn on h6, but now after knight to f2 we have the fork, so you have to take out the knight. And now after rook to h6, I think again that black is here dominant in the game, although the computer evaluation is about equal, but this is not the point. I think again that the bishop pair in potentially open game could be really risky here for white. d5 in some occasions could be really great move, and then again to activate the bishop we can I think even try bishop to b7 and even queenside castling. Now maybe try also to include maybe the rooks on the g file or similar ideas. So as I said, the knight is especially here on e5 a good piece, a centralized piece, so I think it's a comfortable game for black. So after move g5, as we said, that's why Fabi played h4. Now g takes f4, and now bishop to e2, and now the fun really starts. Although here I'm not sure why many times black is doing one particular thing, and Hikaru did the same. Here Hikaru played the move b4, and okay, it's perfectly fine to play the move b4. Many times in this opposite side attack games you should maybe sacrifice pawns, even one pawn, maybe even two pawns, just in order to open some files. But I think here you see now why is it a problem to play the move b4. Okay, Fabiano takes it. Now knight to e5 was played by Hikaru Nakamura. I really think that you can actually play knight to e5 immediately without playing the move b4. So it's the same thing without giving up the pawn, because here after move knight to e5 the queen has to retreat. Now queen to f4 has to be played, and then you have to move knight to g4, here bishop to g4, and you have now the move e5. I'm telling this is very important now, this position, to reach this position. But notice we haven't played the move b4 immediately. So now we'll come to that point why this is so important. So I'm not sure why really many players, I've seen many games in the database in this particular game, in this particular position, that black is playing now the move b4, sacrifices the pawn, and then goes into the same line by sacrificing pawn. I'm not sure why this should be better. The engines are also showing that knight to e5 immediately is a good position here for black. So this is simply, I think, must know theory. Then the game would lead into complications. As I said, queen to f4, then knight to e4, you can take, but now e5. And actually, as I said, the main theory is here even to sacrifice the queen. Queen to f6, bishop to f6, and now knight to d5. This would be really main theory. Many games have been played in this particular line, even with without the move b4. This is something that you have to know here from white's or from black's perspective. But as I said, after move bishop to e2, Hikaru played first the move b4. We had a takes b4, and now the same position with the move knight to e5, queen to f4, again knight to g4, bishop to g4, and now again this move e5. And you can guess what Fabiano Caruana is doing here. He sacrificed now the queen again with queen to f6. This is really beautiful stuff. Now it's a different position, because notice we have now gained the pawn, and it's a huge difference, I think, and that's something now that black should try to avoid. Although it seems risky, it seems like this is something that Fabi pulled off out of his head, but I think this is somewhere sort of a line that Fabi has prepared at home, because even in this position I see many games in the database that have been played by white, many winning games by white, but in this previous line without the move b4 there were also many games that were won by black. So as I said, watch out when you study theory. It's not the same if you played maybe one move with the pawn, if you haven't played one pawn move. So as I said, it's huge different story. So after move queen to f6, this is now perfect queen sacrifice. This is actually what you should do in this position. After move bishop to f6, now Fabi pulls off the move knight knight to d5, and here after move queen to d8, here Fabi doesn't react correctly. He plays now knight to f5, which is not good. Now actually black can defend this position by playing bishop to f5, simply undermining the pressure. What Fabi should have done is here to move knight to c6, and the cool part is actually that only one player in the history I see in the database has played this correct move knight to c6 that is also suggested by top engines. And then the game leads into something like this, bishop to g4, then you have to play rook to d2, and there's not good anymore, good move anymore here for black's queen. Even if you try something like queen to c8, you see we'll simply take out here the knight on f6. If you play, I don't know, something like rook to b8, we'll simply take out the queen. You have to take out now with the bishop, but now with c3, this is again a good position for white. Look at this, white has 5 pawns on the board, black is also 5 pawns on the board, but now look at this centralized knight. This is something that bothers, I think, black in the continuation. Even if you try to get rid of it, then I think we can always recapture with the rook and then try something like rook to d1. So we will continue our pressure around this backward pawn on d6. So here white is simply slightly better. So but as I said, here in the continuation, after move knight to d5 and queen to d8, Fabi pulled off the move knight to f5, and here black can immediately simplify the game by playing the move bishop to f5. But again, here Hikaru Nakamura misses his opportunity and plays now rook to b8, and from this point on it's a bad position now for black, because now Fabi plays the correct move knight to f6, we have queen to f6, and now rook to d6. The position is falling apart because Hikaru didn't take out the knight on f5. So you should not tolerate this very annoying knight on this square. This was the only way to protect this position. Probably the game would end maybe in a draw. This was also playable for white, but bishop to f5 was simply a must defensive move for black. So after move rook to d6, now the position is, I think, falling apart here for black. Rook takes d6, bishop to e6, and here rook from h to d1. We have kingside cutting. Finally Hikaru is securing the king, but now h5, and this was a beautiful move by Fabiano Caruana, because now he's paralyzing the whole king side. Okay, you can try maybe this check, queen to g5, but now with bishop to e3 everything is perfectly fine, because if you take then you get the fork here on h6 and the game is over. So this is something that black should try to avoid. So that's why queen to f6 has to be played, and now knight to h6. Here Fabiano takes another pawn. We have king to h8, and now bishop to f5. Although you have also a beautiful stunning tactic here that unfortunately Fabiano missed, but even after bishop to f5 still white is much better. But there was even a better move. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now the best continuation here for white. It's maybe hard to see, but let's calculate a little bit some tactics here. Let's see now the best continuation. So pause the video, try to see what's going on now on the board, try to see now the better continuation. It's not so obvious because you're not winning the game immediately. It's not sort of a tactic that wins the game for white. It's just a tactic that I think gives again white a pleasant game. Okay, here the correct move would have been knight to f7. This would be a brilliant move, because after then rook to f7 we can take out the bishop. That would be an important move, because here there was this pin on the 6th rank, and then you have to play something like queen to h4, or white can cement the position with the move bishop to f5, and you see now even you have to sacrifice, because if you don't do that, rook to h6, rook to g1 will happen. You can even get checkmate in particular scenarios. So as I said, this was an opportunity for Caruana to really spice up the game, but he played okay, a calmer move, which is still perfectly fine, because if black takes, of course, first of all the queen is hanging, but that's not even the point. Even if the queen would escape, still we can always have a beautiful square then for the knight. Can always recapture on f5, and when that happens, then again white is a dominant game. So here after move bishop to f5 we had queen to e7, we have b5, queen to e8, and now finally Fabi found this move, knight to f7. He waited a little bit, but now he found this beautiful tactic, knight to f7, rook to f7, rook to e6, and now after queen to b5, rook to h6, and in this position Hikaru Nakamura resigned. So why did he resign? Because he had to play king to g8. Now rook to g1 has to be the move. Now you have to escape with the king, but now comes a check, and the problem is now when you escape with the king, now we can actually simply take, and you see now how beautiful this attack is by the bishop here. After queen to g8 you get bishop to c5, and there's nothing that can be done. Even if you try king to f6, then you get here rook to g6, the checkmate. So that's why you have to step back. You have to play here on the 8th rank, and now with rook to g8 you get a check. Even if you try to escape here, still bishop to d6, deflecting simply here the king from the defense of the king, and now we can take out here the queen, and it's game over. We can push this pawn. We have here still a 2 versus 1. We're up a piece, and it's game over for black. So very beautiful game. But as we said, you see, you have to watch your theory. Many mistakes can be played. In my opinion, the game started a little bit bad here for Hikaru after this move. Let's go to the critical moment. So when he played the move b4, if you reach this position from black's perspective, as I said, try to stay calm. I think here simply knight to e5 leads into this line. Again, the same position could happen e5. We have seen it also in this continuation, but without the move b4. Then if you take queen to f6, the bishop to f6, okay, knight to d5, then we can play queen to d8, and probably you will face again this idea knight to c6, but now here with the move bishop to g4, we can simply take, and even if you take out here the knight, we can still play bishop to d8 and get out of this mess. Still, I think this is a different story now, because now black has 6 pawns, white has only 5 pawns, and black is still the bishop pair on the board, which is, I think, now different, huge different story. You don't have to play the move b4. We have seen we can reach now the similar position, but slightly better here for black. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the study about the Najdorf Sicilian, about this poison pawn variation, but about this queen sacrifice that it's possible. Look at this variation, please check it out, because as I said, many games have been played, many games I found in the database in this particular lines. It's really something worth to study. Probably if you're Najdorf player, some of these things can happen to you, and maybe if you're facing the Najdorf, you should also watch some theory from white perspective. So I think it was an important study here in this very sharp opening. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this analysis. I really enjoyed the game, because again, we have witnessed really a beautiful queen sacrifice. Again, also thank you for your suggestions in the continuation of our best chess games of all time series. I would love to cover more of your games that you suggest me, because as I said, I really didn't see many of these games, especially for instance, I didn't see this game. It was a new game for me, and it was a stunning game. Thank you for suggesting me this tactical beauty. Okay, if you want to see more attacking brilliances like this, check out my best chess games of all time series. Here's the link of our whole playlist with some other games that we have covered before. And if you want to see the top engines battling it out in their best chess games, check out my commented chess games played by computers, with some great games played by Stockfish, Alpha Zero, Lila Zero, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.